A distant cry cut through the rain. At first, Lily thought it was a cat, but then she froze. The sound came again, weaker this time, trembling. Emma's eyes widened. "Did you hear that?" she whispered. Without waiting for an answer, she followed the echo down the narrow alley that reeked of spoiled food and rusted metal. Behind an overturned trash bin, wrapped in a torn blue blanket, lay a baby, small, pale, trembling. Its face was red from crying, its tiny fists clenching in the cold. For a moment, the sisters just stayed, the rain sliding down their faces like tears they hadn't owned. Emma bent down slowly, her hands shaking. "Oh God, someone left her here," she breathed. Lily knelt beside her, pressing a trembling hand against the baby's chest, warmth, but fading. "She's alive," she whispered. "Emma, she's alive." Without hesitation, Emma scooped the infant into her arms, wrapping her own thin scarf around the baby's fragile body. The rain soaked through everything, but Emma didn't care. The baby's cries softened, as if comforted by her heartbeat. They found shelter beneath a half-collapsed shed behind an old marketplace. The tin roof rattled with the storm, but inside it was dry enough to sit. Lily rubbed the baby's hands gently, whispering lullabies her mother used to sing before life fell apart. The sisters hadn't eaten properly in 2 days. They had no roof, no family, and yet, at that moment, it felt as if they'd been given something sacred. Who would throw her away like this? Lily said softly. Emma didn't answer. Her eyes were fixed on something glinting around the baby's wrist, a small golden bracelet, delicate but clearly expensive. She brushed the grime away and read the tiny engraving. Grace. A name. Lily gasped. "Do you think she belongs to someone rich?" "Maybe," Emma said quietly. "But why would they abandon her?" The baby stirred, eyes fluttering open, bright, gray-blue eyes that seemed to look straight through them. For a second, Emma forgot the cold, the hunger, everything. That look felt familiar. Hours passed. The rain eased into a drizzle. Emma sat awake, the baby cradled against her chest, while Lily slept curled beside them. Her thoughts wandered, back to their parents, gone too soon, the endless search for food, the nights they'd held hands on the bridges, promising not to give up. She looked at the baby again. "Grace," she whispered, "maybe you're our reason not to. If you were there in that moment, what would you have done? Be honest. Comment your answer below. And if words fail you, just hit like to prove that compassion still matters." By dawn, the streets were slick with the aftermath of rain. Emma and Lily walked toward the old part of town, where markets opened early and warmth meant borrowed kindness. They needed milk, but money was a language they didn't speak anymore. At a roadside tea stall, an old woman noticed a baby in Emma's arms. Her eyes softened immediately. "Whose child is this?" "We found her," Emma replied cautiously. The woman's wrinkled hands trembled as she poured hot tea into tin cups. "God works in strange ways," she murmured. "You girls look like you've lost everything, but maybe he sent you something to keep your hearts alive." Emma smiled faintly, though her stomach twisted with fear. Keeping the baby was impossible. They couldn't even feed themselves. Yet the thought of leaving her in an orphanage, a place she might never feel love, broke something inside her. Lily tugged on her sleeve. "Maybe we can find a family," she said. "That bracelet. Someone must be looking for her." They spent the morning asking around, showing the bracelet to shopkeepers, guards, and vendors. Most shrugged. One man squinted at it and said, "That looks like something from the Montrose estate. They are rich folks on the other side of town." But he hesitated. Their baby was kidnapped weeks ago. Emma's heart skipped. "Kidnapped?" Lily whispered. He nodded. "Everyone's been talking about it. Posters, police, everything. Poor couple nearly went mad." Emma looked down at the baby. Grace blinked up at her with those same silver-gray eyes. Could it be? The thought both terrified and comforted her. They were just two beggar sisters, nameless to the world, and suddenly, fate had dropped a life-changing secret into their hands. Emma's gaze lingered on the bracelet again. "Grace Montrose," she whispered. "What if she's the one?" The baby gurgled softly, as if answering. Emma couldn't shake the thought as they walked through the thinning morning fog. Grace Montrose. The name echoed in her head like a melody she didn't know the words to. The streets ahead were cleaner, the air lighter, lined with tall houses and shiny cars. It felt like stepping into another world, one that had never known hunger or rain-soaked nights. Lily clutched her arm nervously. Do you really think this is a good idea? Emma adjusted the blanket around the baby. If she really belongs to that family, they'll be looking for her. We have to try. They stopped in front of the Montrose mansion, tall iron gates, white pillars, and a fountain that sparkled under the morning sun. A guard stood by the gate, his uniform pressed and spotless. Emma hesitated before stepping forward. Excuse me, sir, she began, her voice barely above a whisper. We found a baby last night. She had this bracelet. She held it up, trembling slightly. The guard's expression changed instantly. Where did you get that? He barked. Lily stepped back, clutching Emma's sleeve. We're not thieves. We found her in the trash behind the market. The guard's eyes darted between them and the baby. He picked up a walkie-talkie and muttered something quickly. Within minutes, a woman came rushing out from the house, elegant, but with red-rimmed eyes that spoke of sleepless nights. Where is she? The woman gasped, scanning the sisters until her gaze landed on the baby. Her breath hitched. Grace! Emma handed the baby forward hesitantly. The woman's hand shook as she took her daughter, tears streaming down her cheeks. Oh my God, it's her. It's my baby. Lily smiled faintly, tears forming in her own eyes. For a moment, everything around them disappeared. The guards, the mansion, even the cold. There was only love, raw and wordless. The woman, Mrs. Montrose, turned to them, overwhelmed. How can I ever thank you? You brought her back to me. Emma looked down, unsure how to respond. We didn't do anything. We just couldn't leave her there. Mrs. Montrose's voice cracked. No, you did everything. You saved her. Within minutes, they were invited inside. The warmth of the house felt unreal. Golden light, soft carpets, the smell of coffee and baked bread. Emma and Lily sat awkwardly on the edge of a couch, too afraid to move. Mr. Montrose entered, tall, weary, but with a gentleness that cut through the tension. He froze when he saw Grace in his wife's arms, then rushed forward, his composure breaking. She's safe. She's really safe, he whispered, his voice trembling. They thanked the sisters endlessly, offering food, blankets, even new clothes. For the first time in months, Emma and Lily ate until they were full. The taste of warm bread and milk nearly brought them to tears. When they were done, Mr. Montrose cleared his throat. Please, tell us, who are you girls? Emma hesitated. We don't really have anyone, sir. We live near the market. Mrs. Montrose reached across the table, her eyes kind. You have us now. You've done something we can never repay. Have you ever had someone help you when no one else would? Right, yes, and tell me their name. Maybe gratitude can travel further than we think. That evening, the Montroses insisted they stay for the night. Clean clothes were brought, and the sisters were shown a guest room bigger than any space they'd ever imagined sleeping in. Lily stood near the window, watching the sunset paint the city gold. Emma, do you think this is real? She whispered. Emma smiled softly, brushing her hair. I don't know, but for the first time, I feel safe. She turned toward the cradle beside the bed, where baby Grace slept peacefully. The tiny bracelet still gleamed on her wrist, the same bracelet that had led them here. As night deepened, Emma lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Gratitude filled her heart, but something tugged at her thoughts. A memory, faint, fragmented, of their mother crying years ago, clutching something small and golden in her hand. She couldn't remember the details, but she remembered that same engraved name, Grace. A chill ran down her spine. The next morning, Mrs. Montrose thanked them again and offered a reward, money enough to change their lives. Emma hesitated, eyes flicking to Lily. We didn't do it for money, she said. But Mrs. Montrose smiled. Take it anyway. It's not payment, it's gratitude. They accepted the envelope reluctantly. As they stepped outside, Emma turned one last time to look at the mansion. Mrs. Montrose stood at a window, holding her baby close, eyes full of love. Lily smiled. We did something good, Emma. Something right. Emma nodded, but her chest felt heavy. The name on that bracelet still echoed in her mind, wrapping around her thoughts like a whisper she couldn't escape. That night, as they sat beneath a bridge counting the last of the daylight, Emma finally spoke. "Lily, do you remember Mom wearing a bracelet?" Lily frowned. "Yeah." She said it belonged to someone she lost. Emma's breath caught. What if this baby isn't just anyone's? What if she's connected to us somehow? Lily looked at her, confused. "You mean?" Emma didn't finish. She just looked out at the river, the golden light flickering on her face, wondering if fate had just brought them full circle. That question lingered like a haunting melody in Emma's mind for days. Even as she and Lily returned to their routine, scavenging, surviving, trying to smile, something inside Emma refused to quiet down. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Grace's tiny face, her mother's tear-streaked eyes, and that engraved bracelet shining through the dark. 3 days later, as they sat beside the old church steps, Emma turned to Lily. "I can't stop thinking about it," she murmured. "That bracelet. Mom had one just like it." Lily tilted her head. "Maybe it's just a coincidence." Emma shook her head. "No. Mom said it was from someone she loved, someone she lost before we were born." The air between them grew still. Lily frowned, trying to recall fragments of stories from her childhood, nights when their mother would hum lullabies and trace her fingers over that same pattern on the bracelet, whispering, "My Grace." Emma's heart pounded. She said that name. "Lily, I remember." The realization felt too big, too impossible. What were the odds that the baby they found, the one from a wealthy family, had the same name, the same bracelet, the same mysterious connection? That night, Emma couldn't sleep. She stared up at the cracked ceiling of the shelter they shared with other homeless souls. The city hummed outside, cars, voices, laughter, all distant, unreachable sounds. She whispered to herself, maybe we're not just part of her story, maybe she's part of ours. The next morning, Emma made a decision. "We're going back," she said. Lily blinked. "To the mansion?" "Yes. I need to talk to them. I need to know where that bracelet came from." Lily hesitated, but saw the fire in Emma's eyes. She nodded. "Then we'll go together." When they arrived, the gates opened easily this time. The guard recognized them and nodded with respect. Inside, the Montroses were surprised but warmly welcoming. Mrs. Montrose looked radiant, lighter, happier, the baby cradled in her arms. "Emma, Lily, what a wonderful surprise," she said, smiling. "Grace's little angels." Emma smiled faintly, but her voice was steady. "Mrs. Montrose, may I ask something personal?" The woman nodded. "Where did that bracelet come from?" "The one on Grace's wrist." Mrs. Montrose blinked, caught off guard. "Why do you ask?" "It just looked familiar," Emma said softly. "My mother had one exactly like it when we were children. She said it belonged to someone she loved and lost." Mrs. Montrose's expression shifted. Her hand trembled slightly as she stroked the bracelet on Grace's tiny wrist. "This was given to me by my sister," she said slowly. "Years ago, before she disappeared." Emma's breath hitched. "Your sister?" "She left home suddenly," Mrs. Montrose continued, her voice breaking. "No one ever found her. Her name was Clara." Lily gasped. "Our mother's name was Clara." The room fell into silence. Mrs. Montrose's eyes widened, her lips parting as she studied their faces. The shape of Emma's eyes, the curve of Lily's jaw, the familiar tilt of her sister's smile reflected in them. "Oh, my God!" she whispered, tears filling her eyes. "Clara had daughters." Emma's heart raced. "She died when we were little," she said quietly. "We never knew she had family." Mrs. Montrose covered her mouth, shaking her head. "That means you're my nieces." The baby stirred in her arms, as if sensing the weight of revelation. The truth hit all of them at once, heavy, beautiful, shattering. The sisters had not just saved a stranger's child. They had unknowingly rescued their own blood, their cousin. "Now it's your turn. Share one small good thing you did recently. Write it below so others remember that humanity still lives." Your story might light someone's path tonight. For a long moment, no one spoke. The air itself seemed to tremble with emotion. Mrs. Montrose reached out and pulled Emma and Lily into an embrace. "All this time," she whispered, "I searched for my sister. I prayed she was alive somewhere, and now her daughters are standing in front of me." Lily's voice cracked. "We didn't even know we had anyone left." Mrs. Montrose looked between them, tears still falling. "Your family, and you will never live on the streets again. Do you understand me?" But Emma shook her head, overwhelmed. "We're grateful, but we can't just accept that. It feels like too much." "It's not too much," Mrs. Montrose said firmly. "It's love, and love doesn't measure what's deserved. It gives what's missing." Her words struck deep. 4 years. The sisters had only known survival, a life where kindness was rare and trust was dangerous. But now, they were being offered something they'd only dreamed of, belonging. Later that evening, Emma sat with the baby in her arms. Grace giggled, tiny fingers grabbing at Emma's necklace. "You saved me," Emma whispered, smiling through tears. "But maybe you saved us too." In the soft light of the Montrose garden, the three of them, one child, 2 sisters, sat wrapped in a peace they'd never known. Above them, stars broke through the dark, quiet sky, as if bearing witness to the miracle that fate had quietly written between the lines of pain and loss. Yet, deep inside, Emma knew the story wasn't finished. There were still questions about their mother, about what had separated the sisters' families in the first place, about why Clara had vanished. And for the first time, she felt brave enough to seek the answers. She looked at Lily. "We have a family now," she said softly, "but I need to know why we lost them." Lily nodded slowly. "Then let's find out." Emma held Grace close one last time, before handing her back to Mrs. Montrose. "We'll be back," she promised. "There's something we have to understand." Mrs. Montrose smiled sadly. "Whatever you find, you'll never be alone again." The night wind brushed against their faces as they stepped outside. The city lights shimmered like scattered hope. Somewhere in those streets lay the missing pieces of their mother's story, and they were finally ready to uncover it. The next morning, the city seemed quieter than usual, a rare stillness that felt like an omen. Emma and Lily walked side by side down a narrow street leading to the part of town where their mother used to work years ago. The air smelled faintly of rain and coal dust. Emma carried a small bundle of old papers they had kept from her mother's belongings, torn letters, faded photographs, and a single locket with a woman's picture inside, smiling softly at someone beyond the frame. Lily traced the edge of the photo with her thumb. "Do you think she ran away from them?" she asked quietly. Emma shook her head. "I don't know, but Mom wasn't the kind to run. Something must have happened." They stopped at a worn building, the same place where Clara had once worked as a maid for a wealthy family before vanishing. The caretaker, an elderly man with tired eyes, opened the door cautiously when Emma knocked. "Sir," Emma began gently, "did you work here when Clara did?" The man's brow furrowed. "Clara? Clara Montrose." Emma nodded, her heart thudding. He sighed deeply, leaning against the frame. "I remember her. Kind woman. Always smiling, even when life gave her nothing but struggle. But one night, she just disappeared. People said she was taken away." "Taken?" Lily repeated. "By who?" The man hesitated, his gaze darting around nervously. Back then, there were rumors. Her employer's husband was a cruel man. There was talk he forced her to leave, maybe even hurt her. No one saw her again after that. Emma felt her stomach twist. Their mother hadn't abandoned anyone. She'd been forced into silence. Did she ever mention her family? Emma pressed. The old man nodded faintly. Only her sister said she'd protect her no matter what. But I think shame kept her from going back. Emma's eyes burned. She had nothing to be ashamed of. "Maybe not," the man said softly. "But the world doesn't always see it that way." The sisters thanked him and stepped back into the street. For a long time, neither spoke. The truth they were uncovering was heavier than they'd imagined. Not a story of abandonment, but of pain and secrets buried under years of silence. Lily finally said, "All this time, we thought we were unwanted, but she was protecting us." Emma nodded slowly. She didn't run. She was taken from her life, from her sister, from us. And somehow, that bracelet found its way back. That evening, They returned to the Montrose house, their hearts full but aching. Mrs. Montrose listened quietly as they told her everything, every word from the caretaker, every fragment of their mother's past. When they finished, Mrs. Montrose sat still, tears slipping silently down her cheeks. "All these years," she whispered, "I thought she left because she didn't care. But she was suffering alone, and I never knew." Emma reached across the table, taking her hand. "She must have loved you deeply. She talked about you, even when she had nothing left." Mrs. Montrose's lips trembled. "She was my other half. I should have looked harder." "Sometimes," Emma said softly, "people disappear not because they want to, but because life doesn't give them a choice." Lily watched them both, tears glistening in her eyes. The pain in the room was real, but beneath it was something healing, the kind of ache that came when broken pieces finally began to fit together. As the night deepened, the family gathered around baby Grace's cradle. The child slept peacefully, unaware of the generations of love and loss that had converged above her. Mrs. Montrose looked at Emma and Lily. "You've given me my daughter back," she said, "but you've also given me my sister again, through you." Emma smiled faintly. "And you've given us something we never thought we'd have, a family." The air grew still, warm, and sacred. For the first time in years, Emma felt the sharp edges of her heart soften. She looked down at Grace and whispered, "You brought us home." If that moment hit you hard, leave a red heart hash. Sometimes one little symbol says what our hearts can't. The following days were filled with both healing and discovery. The Montroses arranged for Emma and Lily to move into a small guest house on their property, a fresh start, surrounded by safety and warmth. For the first time, the sisters had beds of their own, clean clothes, and meals that didn't come from dumpsters. But more than that, they had a place that felt like it wanted them. Mrs. Montrose often sat with them in the garden, telling stories of her and Clara as children, how they chased fireflies in the summer and write secret notes under their pillows. Emma listened with tears in her eyes, imagining her mother laughing again, alive in those memories. One afternoon, as the sun melted into gold, Emma found herself walking near the fountain in the courtyard. She stopped and whispered, "Mom, we found her. We found where you belong." A soft wind brushed against her hair, gentle, like an answer. Behind her, Lily approached quietly, carrying Grace. "She's sleeping again," she said with a smile. Emma turned, smiling too. "Good. She deserves peaceful dreams." "So do you," Lily said softly. Emma nodded. "Maybe, for the first time, I will." The camera of life, if someone were watching, would have lingered there, two sisters in a child bath in warm sunlight, surrounded by the echoes of forgiveness, the ghosts of pain slowly fading into peace. But fate wasn't finished with them yet. Sometimes, before peace settles for good, the past comes knocking one last time. And that knock was about to change everything. It was late evening when the knock came. Sharp, hesitant, echoing through the quiet hallways of the Montrose mansion. Emma was in the kitchen helping Mrs. Montrose prepare dinner, while Lily played with Grace in the sitting room. The sound made them all pause. Mrs. Montrose wiped her hands on a cloth. Who could that be at this hour? The butler opened the door, and standing there was a man in a dark coat, holding an envelope. His face was lined with time, but his eyes carried the weight of familiarity. "I'm looking for Emma and Lily," he said. Emma stepped forward cautiously. "That's us." He nodded slowly, removing his cap. "My name is Thomas. I knew your mother." The air seemed to vanish from the room. Mrs. Montrose froze, her hand tightening around the edge of the table. "You knew Clara." Thomas exhaled shakily. "More than knew her. I was the one who tried to help her the night she disappeared." Lily stood up, her heart beat loud in her ears. "Help her? What happened that night?" Thomas's eyes softened with sorrow. She was planning to leave her employer's house. She discovered something terrible, that her employer's husband had been involved in child trafficking. She was going to report it, but before she could, he found out. I was a driver there then. I tried to protect her, but she told me to run. When I came back with help, she was gone. The words hit like thunder. Mrs. Montrose covered her mouth, trembling. "Oh my God, that was my brother-in-law." Emma felt her knees weaken. You mean Mom was trying to save someone? Thomas nodded. Yes. The baby she'd found, abandoned in that man's car. She risked her life to protect that child. Emma's breath caught. A baby. Lily's voice cracked. Was that baby Grace? Thomas shook his head. No, that was years ago. The baby didn't survive. But Clara, she never stopped trying to expose them. And when she got pregnant herself, she hid you girls to keep you safe. The room went silent except for Grace's soft babbling in the background, a sound of innocence against the weight of tragedy. Mrs. Montrose sat down slowly, tears rolling down her face. All this time, I thought she left because she didn't want us. But she died protecting someone else's child. Emma's voice trembled. She died protecting us too. Thomas stepped closer, holding out the envelope. I've kept this for years. It's the letter she wrote before that night. Emma's hand shook as she opened it. Inside, in fading ink, were words that felt like a heartbeat reaching across time. To my girls, Emma and Lily, if you ever find this, know that everything I did was to keep you safe. The world can be cruel, but love will always lead you home. If you meet my sister, tell her I never stopped loving her. And if you find a child who needs saving, do what I couldn't. Save them. Emma pressed the letter to her chest, her tears falling silently. The room was filled with a kind of silence that demanded reverence. Lily leaned into her, whispering. She knew, Emma, she knew we'd find our way back. Be honest. Could you forgive after what they did? Type forgive if you could, or never if it would break you too deeply. Mrs. Montrose walked toward the window, her reflection trembling in the glass. I have to tell my husband, she whispered. He deserves to know what his brother did. But Thomas shook his head. He already knows. That's why he left the city years ago, to bury the shame. The man responsible died soon after Clara disappeared. Karma, maybe. The storm outside began to gather, wind moaning against the windows like the voices of the past finally breaking free. Emma folded the letter carefully, her voice steady despite her tears. She was brave, wasn't she? Thomas nodded. Braver than anyone I've ever known. That night, the sisters sat by Grace's cradle again, holding each other in the dim glow of the lamp. They read the letter aloud until the words felt like a song, until it didn't hurt to say her name anymore. Lily traced the edge of the paper. She wanted us to save someone who needed it, and we did. Emma smiled softly. Maybe that's why Grace came to us. Maybe it wasn't fate. Maybe it was Mom. Outside, thunder rolled, low, distant, like a heartbeat echoing through the sky. When the rain began again, it didn't feel cold anymore. It felt cleansing. Mrs. Montrose came to them, kneeling beside the cradle. Clara's spirit must be proud, she said quietly. You both have her courage. Emma took her hand, and her sister has her heart. Mrs. Montrose smiled through tears. Then maybe we can all start over. Together. They sat there for hours, the sound of rain a gentle hymn in the background. It was no longer a storm that hurt, it was one that healed. But as dawn approached, Emma found herself looking at the letter again. In the corner, faint and almost invisible, were two initials, T.M., Thomas Miller, she murmured. He signed it too. Lily frowned. You think he loved her? Emma looked at the old man sleeping in the parlor chair, exhaustion etched into his face. No, she said softly. He never stopped loving her. And maybe, she thought, that was what made their mother's story not just tragic, but timeless. Love had never been lost. It had simply waited through pain, through rain, through generations, until it was finally found again. The morning light spilled through the lace curtains like soft gold, brushing against the sleeping faces of Emma, Lily, and Grace. The storm had passed, but its echo lingered in the quiet hum of the house, a reminder of all that had been revealed. Emma woke first, the letter still clutched in her hand. She stared at it for a long moment, feeling the paper's rough texture, the ink faded by time but still alive with her mother's voice. Beside her, Lily stirred and mumbled something in her sleep, her arm draped protectively over Grace's small body. Emma smiled faintly. For the first time, she wasn't waking up in fear of hunger or loneliness. She was waking up with family, with meaning. Later that day, Mrs. Montrose gathered everyone in the sitting room. The morning sun painted long beams across the wooden floor, making everything look softer, gentler. Even Thomas sat quietly by the window, his eyes distant but peaceful. "I think," Mrs. Montrose began, "we owe Clara more than sorrow. She deserves a legacy." Lily tilted her head. "What do you mean?" Mrs. Montrose looked at Grace, who was giggling in Emma's lap. "She saved others without anyone ever knowing. Maybe it's time we tell her story, not as a tragedy, but as a reminder of what love can survive." Thomas nodded slowly. "I've kept her secret long enough. It's time the world remembers who she was, not as a victim, but as a hero." Emma swallowed hard. If her story can help someone, she'd want that. And so, they decided. The Montrose family would create a small foundation in Clara's name, one that helped homeless women and children, offering shelter, education, and safety. The same things Clara had once been denied. Weeks passed, and the world around them began to bloom again. The sisters worked tirelessly alongside Mrs. Montrose, helping set up the first shelter in the old market district, the same place they had once scavenged for food. On opening day, Emma stood in front of a small crowd. Her hands trembled as she adjusted the microphone. "My mother," she said softly, "wasn't known by many, but her kindness lived quietly, like sunlight through clouds. She taught us that no matter how broken the world feels, love is never wasted. It always finds its way back." Lily stood beside her, eyes glistening. "We were lost once," she added, "but kindness and a little miracle named Grace brought us home." Applause filled the courtyard. Some cried. Some simply smiled, their hearts stirred by the story of two girls who had found a baby in the trash and discovered a family instead. And somewhere in the crowd, Thomas stood apart, his head held against his chest, whispering to no one, "You did it, Clara." They found their way. If you believe love still wins, comment amen. Let's fill this section with hope. Maybe someone scrolling right now need to see it. That night, the house felt alive with warmth. The scent of fresh bread drifted from the kitchen, and soft laughter echoed down the halls. Lily played with Grace on the rug, while Mrs. Montrose hummed a lullaby she hadn't sung in years, one Clara used to love. Emma stepped out into the garden, the same one where she had once whispered her mother's name to the wind. The fountain glowed faintly under the moonlight, and for a fleeting second, she thought she saw a figure, a woman in a pale dress, her hair swaying gently, smiling before fading into the night air. Emma didn't move. She just smiled back. "Good night, Mom." The door opened softly behind her. It was Thomas. "You saw her too, didn't you?" Emma turned to him, eyes shining. "Maybe. Or maybe I just felt her." He nodded. "That's how love works. It doesn't stay gone, it just changes shape." They stood in silence for a moment, the night cradling them like an old friend. Inside, Lily called out, "Emma, come on." She just said her first word. Emma laughed, running back inside. Grace was sitting upright, wide-eyed and smiling. What did she say? Lily giggled. She said, "Ma." The word hit Emma like sunlight after rain, not sorrowful, but healing. Everyone in the room froze for a second, then burst into tears and laughter all at once. Mrs. Montrose wiped her cheeks, smiling. "She's not just calling for her mother," she whispered. "She's calling for all of you." Emma knelt beside the baby, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "We're here, Grace. Always." And in that moment, the walls of pain, loss, and years of separation finally fell away, leaving behind only love, glowing quietly in the dim light. Outside, the wind rustled through the trees, carrying whispers that sounded almost like laughter, the kind that comes when souls finally find peace. But just as everything began to settle, fate, as it always does, had one last truth to uncover. Because sometimes love's greatest test isn't in finding what was lost, but in letting it go. The days turned into weeks, and peace became a familiar guest in the Montrose household. The foundation thrived. Women and children from forgotten corners of the city began to find warmth, food, and hope under the roof that carried Clara's name. Emma and Lily found purpose in helping others, but Emma noticed something quietly changing inside herself. Nights felt heavier. Her thoughts lingered longer on her mother's letter, and her heart often ached with questions she couldn't silence. Had they truly honored her, or had they simply built comfort around her memory? One evening, while sorting through donations in the shelter's small office, Emma found an old file tucked beneath a stack of papers. It bore the Montrose family seal. She frowned and opened it. Inside were faded photographs and reports from a police investigation years ago. Her breath caught when she saw one page in particular, a report stating that Clara's body had never been found. Emma's pulse quickened. "Never found," she whispered, tracing the words with trembling fingers. Footsteps approached behind her. It was Thomas. He looked weary, his face lit by the soft yellow glow of the lamp. "She might still be out there," Emma said quietly. Thomas sighed. "I've searched half my life, Emma. Sometimes people get lost in ways we can't fix." "But she deserves to be found," Emma said, her voice cracking, "even if it's just to say goodbye." Thomas hesitated, then placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "If you really want to look, I'll help you, but you have to be ready for what you might find." Lily entered, holding Grace. "What's going on?" Emma looked up, her eyes fierce with determination. "We're going to find Mom, no matter what." That night, they began their search. Old records, missing person reports, newspaper archives. The puzzle slowly came alive. It led them to a small town 2 hours away, near the coast. A hospice center that had a record of a woman who'd arrived years ago, suffering from trauma and memory loss. The name she had given them was Clara May. Emma's heart raced as they drove through winding roads under a cloudy sky. The sea air smelled like rain and salt. When they reached the hospice, the nurse on duty looked surprised. "Clara May," she said softly. "She's been here for years. Kind soul, though she barely remembers her past." Emma's knees went weak. "She's alive." The nurse nodded. "She doesn't talk much, but she paints. Every wall of her room is covered in pictures of 2 girls by the sea." Lily's tears spilled instantly. "It's us," she whispered. They followed the nurse down a quiet hallway. The room was small, filled with soft light and the faint scent of flowers. On the walls hung dozens of drawings. 2 girls holding hands, a baby in a blanket, a bracelet shining in the sun. And sitting by the window was a frail woman with silver hair, her hands resting on her lap. "Mom," Emma's voice broke. Clara turned slowly, her eyes cloudy but kind. For a moment, she simply stared, and then recognition sparked. A trembling smile spread across her face. "Emma? Lily?" Lily ran to her, falling to her knees, clutching her mother's hands. "It's us, Mom. We found you. We found you." Clara's tears fell silently. "My girls," she whispered. "I thought I lost you forever." Emma knelt beside her, pressing her forehead against her mother's. "You didn't lose us, Mom. You led us home." The room filled with quiet sobs, the kind that come when pain turns into peace. Clara's trembling hands cupped their faces as if memorizing them anew. "You grew so beautiful," she murmured. "You found her, didn't you? Grace." Emma nodded, smiling through tears. "She's here, Mom. She's part of the family." Clara laughed softly, a sound fragile but pure. "Then my story, it wasn't wasted. If this story touched your heart, don't scroll away. Tap like, not for me, but for every soul who keeps loving even when life forgets them. One click can be your way of saying, 'I felt you.'" They brought Clara home that same week. The reunion was quiet, not grand, but it didn't need to be. The house seemed to glow differently, filled with laughter that had been missing for decades. Grace took to Clara instantly, giggling in her lap as if she knew her spirit had always been watching. At night, Clara would sit by the fire and tell them stories from before, of how she and her sister once dreamed of opening a home for lost children, of how she promised that if life tore them apart, love would bring them back together. And now, sitting there with her daughters, her niece, and the child they'd saved, it felt as though the promise had finally been kept. As the firelight danced on her wrinkled face, she whispered, "You girls gave me back my ending." Emma leaned close. "No, Mom, you gave us our beginning." The house fell silent except for the soft crackle of the fire and Grace's sleepy hum. Outside, The wind carried the scent of the sea. The same sea that had once held Clara's loneliness now carried her peace. The next morning, as dawn painted the sky, Emma stepped outside, her heart steady, her soul light. She looked toward the horizon and whispered, "We're whole now." And for the first time, there was no answer, because there didn't need to be one. The silence itself was love returned. Time moved differently after that. The seasons softened, days turned gentler. What once felt like survival became something richer, living. Clara grew stronger with each passing week, her laughter slowly filling the spaces that grief had left hollow. She'd spend hours with Grace in the garden, painting while the baby played among the flowers. Emma often watched them from the veranda, her heart swelling in quiet awe. She had dreamed of this once, a home, a family, warmth without fear. And now, it was real. Not perfect, but real. Lily joined her one morning, handing her a cup of tea. "You still wake up early," she teased softly. Emma smiled. "I guess I'm afraid if I blink too long, this might disappear." Lily nudged her shoulder. "It won't. Mom's here. We're here." Even the ghosts seemed to have made peace. They both laughed, the sound light and easy, floating into the crisp morning air. Inside, Clara's voice echoed faintly. "Grace, look, blue like the sky." The sisters glanced through the window. Clara was painting again, the canvas filled with warm colors. In the center, a bracelet gleamed in gold, encircling 3 figures beneath a glowing sky. "She still paints the bracelet," Lily murmured. Emma nodded. "It's how she remembers everything that held us together." Later that evening, as the family gathered around the dinner table, Clara set down her brush and spoke softly. "When I was lost, I prayed that love would find you girls before pain did. I thought I'd failed. But love found you anyway, just not through me. Through Grace." Mrs. Montrose reached for her hand. "It's because love doesn't belong to one person, Clara. It passes through us, changes shape, and finds its way home again." The table fell silent, filled with the warmth of understanding. Even Thomas, seated quietly in the corner, wiped at his eyes and said, "Your story reminds us that sometimes the broken pieces make the strongest glass." Clara smiled, her gaze softening. "I think I can rest now." Emma's chest tightened. "Don't talk like that, Mom." Clara chuckled gently. "I don't mean rest as in leaving, my love. I mean rest as in peace. I've carried guilt and fear for so long, but now I can breathe." The words wrapped around them like a blanket. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, Emma found herself awake again, wandering through the dimly lit house. She passed the nursery where Grace slept, her small chest rising and falling in rhythm with dreams too young to be heavy. In Clara's room, the lamp was still on. Emma peered inside and saw her mother sitting in bed, eyes closed, a faint smile on her lips, the letter she had once written resting over her heart. Emma approached quietly, realizing as she drew near that the room was utterly still. Her breath caught. She touched Clara's hand, warm, soft, but unmoving. A sob rose in her throat, but it didn't come out as pain. It came out as something gentler, gratitude. "Thank you, Mom," she whispered, tears falling freely, "for not giving up on us, for loving us through the dark." She kissed her forehead, resting there for a long time as the moonlight washed over them both. In the morning, when the sun rose, its light filled every corner of the house. No one cried loudly. There were tears, yes, but they were the kind that came with peace, the kind that fell like morning dew, not storms. They buried Clara beneath the cherry tree in the garden she loved. Her gravestone was simple, carved with words chosen by Emma herself. She found love, and it found its way home. Grace toddled beside the grave, holding a small bouquet of wildflowers. Emma lifted her up so she could place them near the stone. "Say bye-bye, sweetheart," she whispered. The child giggled, waving her tiny hand. "Bye-bye, Ma." Lily cried softly behind her, clutching Mrs. Montrose's arm. Thomas stood by the gate, hat pressed to his chest. When everyone went inside, Emma lingered. The petals from the cherry blossoms drifted down, one landing on the gravestone. She smiled through tears. "Rest now, Mom. We'll keep your story alive. If you believe love never truly dies, that it only changes homes, comment Amen." Let's fill this section with hope so someone hurting today might remember that healing always finds its way. Weeks later, the shelter Clara's Hope officially opened its doors. A line of children and mothers waited outside, their eyes tired but hopeful. Emma welcomed each one with open arms. Grace's laughter echoed through the halls as she ran toward her, her bracelet, the same golden one, catching the sunlight just right. Emma lifted her high, spinning her as the world seemed to blur around them. "You're our miracle, Grace," she whispered. "You saved us all." Lily called from the doorway, "We've got more families coming." Emma smiled, holding Grace close. "Then let's make room. There's always room for one more." And as a camera of life pulled back, over the house, over the garden, over the city that once forgot them, the final image lingered. 3 women and 1 child, standing in the doorway of a shelter named after love itself. The rain began again, soft and rhythmic, but this time it didn't wash away. It renewed, because from pain came peace. From loss, found family. And from a single act of kindness in the darkest night, came a story that would keep 1,000 hearts warm forever.